Coaching in Session,
your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
The things that I'm going to be sharing with you today could change your life. And I'm not talking about just for a moment. I'm talking about forever. The entirety of your life, of who you are. It can change today. Now, this is all to be said that it's not going to be easy, right? Change is not easy. I think of my times in my life when I had to change, whether it be a job, a position, a relationship, moving from one state to the next. Change brought about so many struggles, so many challenges. And it wasn't that I couldn't handle it. It's just that sometimes it feels as the burden is so big where you're thinking about how can you chew this whole thing up at once, when the reality is it has to be treated as this is a whole pizza. Let me take a bite first. I don't know many people who just kind of shove a whole pizza in their mouth and they start chewing. They'll probably choke. And if people did do that, I'm sure they wouldn't be alive anymore. So that's why we can't find them, because they're dead. All right. Because you don't do that, right? We have to chew. We have to take the small bites. We have to take the small steps, because change is one of those things where I think many people vie for it, but don't want to commit to it. And all of that is to be said that there is an aspect to change and what is necessary for you to attain it. For individuals, change only means that you have been disciplined enough for you to get that change and make it a reality. Most people might be motivated for change, right? Think of New Year's, think of, something bad happens and they want to change. And sure enough, they change for a week, maybe a couple of minutes, right? Like if they're, having that TikTok life or the TikTok brain, right? They're like, 4 seconds and I can't focus anymore. But yeah, they can focus on things that are irrelevant. They can spend all the time on their phones, and they can spend all the times on their sofa scrolling through Netflix. I think people spend more time scrolling on Netflix than they do watching any videos, because Netflix doesn't have any good videos. I'm sure people spend their time watching series, right? And they watch all of these series and they say they don't have time to go to the gym, or they don't have time to fill out job applications or maybe start a business. And we have to ask ourselves, what is it that you truly want in your life? Because if you are motivated for something good, you might start, but you don't finish. But what would happen if you became disciplined for the good things that you want to have in your life, that you would like to attain? Everything would change. I have this blog here, Discipline Over Motivation, the Key to Sustained Success. And in this article, I am talking about motivation, I'm talking about discipline, and I'm talking about the idea for success. This is all to be said that this can be very challenging for some people. Now, when I was writing this blog, I was like, this is so simple. This is a piece of cake. But it's very similar to playing the C major scale on the piano. It's very simple. But what if, someone didn't know how to play a C major scale on the piano? They wouldn't know. I don't even know where C is. And so for me, even though I have the level of skill for it, someone else might not. Maybe people don't have the level of skill or the discipline or the motivation to understand everything that I'm talking about in this article. But we're going to be breaking that down just right now, because it is important that we feel committed to the best person we can be. One of the things I look at in my life and where I'm most disciplined is physical fitness. I need to have energy, right? I need to be able to work out. And I need to be able to come home and work and play with my kids and to do all these things. If I don't have energy, I'm nothing. No, this is to be said that maybe I can just take an energy drink, right? Maybe I could pop an Adderall or something, right? Or I can take, some type of supplement that helps with my energy and my focus. And right? We can give ourselves placebos. We can give ourselves artificial means for us to get that energy. But what if we just had that natural, raw, innate well of ongoing energy? I have it. Why can't you? Now, this is not to be said that there are some days where I feel down and out, where I feel lethargic. I'm like, what's happening? And I typically have to do some introspection. I figure out what's wrong. Typically, I'm burning out. Again, maybe I need a nap. Okay. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I'm dehydrated. I literally figure out what's going on because I know what I want. Because if I said, tell me all your favorite things, right? You tell me all your favorite things, right? Maybe you like ice cream, you like cake, you like pizza, maybe you like going to the movies. And maybe I say, I'm going to take you to all those things today. Maybe you might enjoy that moment, right? You might say, oh, this was the best day ever. But then what if I took you the next day? Would you still like the cake and the ice cream, or would you get tired of it? And that's what happens, right? The good things that we think we want and what we love, it can get stale very quickly, especially if you do it to a copious amount. But then again, what happens is people decide not to pay attention, because if I was taking you out, I might make it very aware, hey, we're going out. I'm spending time with you. It's going to come to a point where you're going to say, you know what, Mike, I just want to relax right now, right? Even though we're doing all the fun things you love, you just want to relax. You want to kind of get away, because maybe when you're out with me, you try to be someone else, try to be someone different. And so we love to be little hermits and little crabs, and we love to, find ourselves in our boxes after work. And sure, right? It's nice to recharge, but does that recharge bring about anything good? Often it doesn't. Because what happens is you fall into negative habits or poor habits. Watching copious amounts of TV and not reading books is a bad habit. Eating fast foods and not cooking and meal prepping is a bad habit. Saying you're going to do something and never do it is a bad habit. And all of this stems down to the discipline aspect. Because if I don't feel like going to the gym, guess what? I'm going to the gym. I only have one rule when it comes to the gym. If I'm sick, I don't go to the gym. First of all, courtesy. If I'm sick, I don't want to get anyone else sick. I'm touching weights. I'm laying on equipment. I'm, working out on machines or whatever. I'm in this space, and people are huffing and puffing because, they're working out. If I'm over here coughing and, they inhale some germs or something, I'm not going to be a part of that. So I know if I'm sick, if something is wrong, I need rest. I need more fluids. I need maybe, different types of food. When I get that, I know I'm going to recover. And when I recover, then I can say, time to get to work again. Not, I remember when I was sick and it was so nice I didn't have to go to the gym. And I know there was times in my life, when in college especially, when I got so busy. I was like, I'm too busy to go to the gym. And so I was figuring out, what do I do? I was going 2 days a week, 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. And I'm creating workout plans to say, you know what? I'm going to create a plan that works for my schedule. But the problem is, it doesn't matter if it works for my schedule or not. You will always make time for the things you love. And so at the time, I didn't love, being in shape. I didn't love having an abundance of energy, because I was still young and I was still able to do the things by pushing myself. And so I can work a full-time and a part-time job and go to school full-time. And that was easy for me. But then again, I think of, if I were to stop working out today, oh man, I would have some big problems, health problems. All of that can be avoided with a bit of forward thinking. And so I have, passioned myself to say, hey, discipline is so important. But then again, motivation can be the igniter. Now, we have in this article, we talk about like what you need to do to get discipline. Like, you create the routines and you build the momentum. And then, of course, you create the systems. All of this is to say that, discipline is going to be the focus when we're reading this article. But I do want to talk about motivation, and I want to talk about maybe motivation and emotion. So Motivation and Emotion is a video series that we have here on not on the podcast, but you can listen to it on all the audio stations. Again, Spotify, Apple. You can listen to the video and watch the video on YouTube. And the motivational videos are so inspiring, right? They're motivational. And definitely, it will make you feel as if you can take on the world. It will make you feel as, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to kick myself in the butt. But then again, how long does that kick in the butt last when it comes to motivation and emotion? And the statistics and the research is out. 2 to 3 days. So if you listen to a motivational video or content from us, 2 to 3 days, and then you're right back at where you were. Now, of course, you can build and not allow the motivation to falter or to dissipate. And so you keep on building. It's like pressure. Think of like one of the water guns that you have to push, and you build the pressure. And then when you press the trigger, it, like the water jets out, and then eventually it kind of, slowly comes back. And then eventually no water comes out because there's no more pressure pushing the water out. Very similar to your life, right? Motivation is building that pressure, right? So you're pumping the water gun, you're pumping life, and you're going to, expel greatness, and you're going to, be really pronounced for a little bit. But then all of a sudden, if you don't keep on pumping, right, keep putting in the work, that motivation is going to one day dry up. And this is what happens to many people when it comes to motivation. They're motivated for the time being, right? Everything is good. The stream is going good. But then eventually the energy and the momentum wears out. This is to be said that, okay, well, if we know motivation is going to run out, there's only two things that we can do: give ourselves more motivation, or figure out how we can allow discipline to take the wheel. Now, let's look at the first option, right? To give ourselves more motivation. Motivation and motion comes out every Tuesdays and Thursday, right? When we're in season. And so on Thursday, by Sunday or Monday, you probably ran out of the motivation, right? Because Thursday you get motivation, Friday you get motivation, Saturday starts to linger. Now Sunday you're dreading Monday, and Monday you don't have the motivation, and then Tuesday you get your boost and you're ready for the week. And that's why the most productive days out of the week are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's not Monday and Friday. Now, I'm not saying that there's not companies that have productive Mondays and Fridays, but if we just look at it across the board, people are more enthused Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, Wednesday can be a hump day, so people might be tired, especially if they did a good job on Monday. But if they're just coasting, right, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are going to be the days they get the most amount of work. Mondays are going to have the mindset of, I'm here, man, I'm thinking about my weekend, and it's not going to be as good. Same thing with Friday. You're going to be thinking about your weekend to come, right? You're thinking about all the things that you're going to do. And then sure enough, it comes and goes. Saturday, Sunday are gone before you know it. You're motivated for the weekend. But did you do the things maybe on the weekend that, are going to bring about a better life for you? Because if watching the Game of Thrones or The Office for the umpteenth time, is that going to bring about, goodness in your life, right? It might help you alleviate stress, but the reason why you're stressful right now is because you're not taking action, good action. Because if you're stressed and it's a negative stress, right? Like money stress is very negative. You don't need that, right? Like financial stress, like why? Figure out what you need to do and do it. But again, I understand. It's not as easy as saying it and then doing it, right? You have to be a person that's going to be committed to the change. And I said early on, change is not easy. It requires you to get out of your comfort zone. And we love comfort, again, because the brain is wired to keep us, comfortable. So we can conserve energy just in the case of, or the event, that if anything were to happen, we would be able to take action. But then I think about, the brain is pretty dumb, because it's over here saying, well, let's conserve energy just in case we have to run from a mountain lion, and we don't have the cardiovascular system to be able to run half a mile. We ain't running from nothing. All right. We are running into our grave. That's the quickest thing where, people are running into right now. We can make changes. Some people do, but not enough do. Right. People just fall into the culture or the system, and that's it. I say, you know what? If we could just give ourselves a shift, and that shift is the discipline aspect, right? It's all in this article right here. Discipline is so important, but it is more challenging to make discipline work for you, because discipline is literally like a good investment. You want a good investment to make you money, right? You don't want your 1%, your 1.25% from the bank for keeping your money in a savings account, right? It's even less for some savings accounts. If we can invest it more properly, right, we're going to be having 10, 12, 15 maybe percent returns on what we do. And in the finance game, that is big. If your money can grow that much, and of course, yeah, we can talk about 50+% growth on our money. And I mean, we could talk about 25, 50% on our money, our, gains on our money. Again, that's going to be more rare. And so we look at the probability. So the best probability that a person can get is between 4 and 10%. And then, of course, if you get any more than that, that was a good year. But we gamble on 10%. If we know 10% is all we need in order to create millions of dollars later on in life for our retirement or for our, our own personal endeavors, if we want to go do something, we have some money. Well, what would 10% look like in your day, right? Think of your day in a whole. If you had to separate what you did in a percentage, right? How much time do you spend on things? And your phone does this, and I know people hate this when they look at it, is your phone will tell you how much you spend in percentages, right? So they say screen time, 2 hours and 50 minutes, right? And it'll say you spend this much time in apps, this much time on the web. These are all percents, right? Now, if you maybe, incorporated that to your life, and of course, what you can do is you can, separate the 24 hours and you can figure out what you're doing minus the 8 hours for sleep. So you have 16 hours of your day to do something unless you're sleeping more. You might devote 8 hours for work, making money, a living, and then you have 8 hours left for some change, right? And so let's say I'm going to minus an hour for sleep and minus an hour for work. Easy math, right? So now we have 10 hours to work with. We can see how much time we spend in those free hours, right? Those free time. We might spend 2 hours, 3 hours watching movies. We might spend an hour commuting. We might spend an hour hanging out with our family. And then we might spend an hour like doing beauty work. And then we spend the rest of our time kind of looking at the ceiling. This is what happens sometimes. And of course, we can minus a little bit of that last bit and go to the gym, right? Of course. So we have many options for growth. We can put down our phone. We can stop watching so much TV. We can find a job that is not going to be our commute. I mean, we can figure out how we can get more time. Now, just because we get more time, it doesn't mean we're going to use time to our benefit. And I remember when I got more time after I was done with college, I had all of this time. I was like, what am I going to do with all this time? I'm over here watching movies and I'm over here, I'm like laying in bed and going out with my dog here and there. And I'm like, wait 1 second. I was doing so much more prior to me graduating than I am now that I have a career and I have an easy life. I said, no. Life has to be challenging to some level, to some degree. I have to keep on pushing, right? Because if I'm not, I will find myself in that depression so quickly, right? And people who fall into depression, they have too much time. Because if you don't have time to cry or time to be depressed, you might think that's depressing, but it's not. Because the mind loves movement. Think of a lake that is just stagnant, or a pond or a puddle that is stagnant. Eventually it starts to, get debris and bugs and, mosquitoes and gnats to start laying their larvae in it. And before you know, you have a cesspool of putridness. It's nothing good. It might start to smell. But if you have a river, guess what happens? It's flowing. It's still plentiful. And it is constantly moving everything that is there. Dirt, leaves, bugs, all of those things are just kind of coming in and leaving and going. And that is what should happen in your life. You should be able to be that river in a sense that allows things to come and allow things to go. If you are lazy 1 minute, then you say, you know what? This is a moment where I'm going to allow things to go. And if you're disciplined, you are allowing yourself to continually make progress. You're not going to just say, you know what? I did so good yesterday. I'm going to take today off. Before you know it, you're going to find yourself in that forever flow. One of the things that I give here in this article is the last part, is creating systems. And systems are the easiest things to create. You can do it in your business. You can do it in your life. Now, a system is literally just saying what you do. If something happens in your life, you also might have a system for that. For example, I didn't have a system like if something bad happened in my life. It could be loss of a loved one, it could be loss of a job or something. And maybe my system before was just kind of vegging out, looking at the ceiling, right? Doing nothing. But now I have a new system, right? If something bad happens in my life, I take some time, I journal. And then from there, from the journaling aspect, I have already written out my goals and my next steps that I need to do. And then I'm just methodical about it. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. This is what needs to be done. Now, this same system, it can be used for everything. When you wake up, what do? When you are going to work, what are you listening to? Are you listening in the coaching session? Are you listening to some other personal development podcasts? I know there's like truckers who are just so happy to be on the road for 12 hours, 16 hours a day because they're just listening to podcasts all day. And I know there's, drivers who, drive for a living, whether it be a bus, whether it be Uber, and they will listen to the podcast. And of course, you can binge the podcast from episode 1 all the way to now. The reality is eventually you're going to find some point where the episodes are only coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so what do you do in between? Do you say I have to wait for some more motivation? Do I have to wait for Michael to tell me to be disciplined? Do I have to wait to get my life together? No. You take all the things that you've learned and you say, all right, how can I take everything that I've learned to build the life that I would like? And that's the system. So the system that you are going to create is going to be benefiting you. If you are perhaps, let's use career for a second. Let's say you want a new job. You might be making good money, but you're not fulfilled. And so your current lifestyle right now or your habits would be you wake up, you go into the office, whether you have to commute or you work remotely from home. You spend about 8 to 10 hours working. And then when you're all done, you want to have a refresh. So you might have some wine or you might want to go out to eat with friends or whatever. That might feel good, right? But then again, what did you do in order to change your job, right? Because we're talking about if you wanted to change your job, you just did exactly what you did or what you were always going to do. So maybe we would have to sacrifice something, right? Maybe not going out with our friends. And we will say, you know what? I'm not going to go out with you today, guys. It's not because I don't like you, it's because I'm working on something. Of course, they might say, come on, stop being a Debbie Downer, or, stop being a punk or a jerk or whatever. Those individuals are going to be the anchors in your life. And you have to relinquish them. They're not going to help with the system that you're building. And so you have to figure out the time that you're going to do things because maybe you go out with your friends every, Friday or something like that. And so you have Monday through Thursday to build, to change, to become dedicated, right? To find the discipline to do the things because you might be motivated right now to change your circumstance. But are you dedicated? I think more people will always find that they're motivated to do something. They're not dedicated for the change. They're not committed to the change. And they will not develop the discipline for the change to happen. I talk about how to do all of that in this article here, Discipline Over Motivation, the Key to Sustained Success. Motivation is going to be that ignition that's going to, get you there, but it's going to fade very quickly. That's why we always need to get a re-up of motivation. It's very similar to a high for a drug addict, I'm sure. It's like they get their fix and all of a sudden they need another fix. Motivation can be that drug, and it's not a good drug to be addicted to. And so we have to understand that motivation is always going to be emotion. It's always going to be fleeting. When we understand that motivation is doing that, we need to learn how to implement discipline so we can say, okay, what disciplines do I need to have within myself and in my life that are going to help me become more successful? And you can define what success is for you, and then you can define the areas that you would like to be successful in. Would you like to be successful in your relationships or your career or your personal fitness? I mean, we can go down the list of where you would like to be successful, and then you just associate what disciplines you need in order for that to happen. Parenting, I believe, is very easy when it comes to, if you want your kids to be right on track, you have to be right on track. You have to be the role model, right? Because the majority of children are not going to operate on what you tell them. They're going to operate on what they see that you do. So if they see that you're a slob, if they see that you're not taking action, if they see you're unmotivated, if they see that you don't have discipline, if they see that you're not being committed long term to something, guess what's going to happen to them long term? And this is one of the reasons why our world is such in a tailspin, is because we have not only children who are unaware of how to be disciplined, we have a whole generation of adults who do not know how to be disciplined. We have to do the work to become more disciplined. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a one-day thing. It's going to be something you have to commit to long term. Now, of course, you can get a coach. You can hire us, revenconcepts.com, and we can help you develop the motivation, of course, to get you going, the momentum. But then we make sure you remain constant. And that constant eventually is going to become a habit. And that habit eventually is going to turn into your discipline, where there's not going to be a moment where you say, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to, let off the gas. There is always what you have to do. Gym for me, 5 days out of the week right now. Of course, when I have to focus on my family, it might be 4 days out of the week. And I understand that. Family comes first when it comes to the gym, but I understand that if I don't have the gym, I can't have a good family. So you might think that I have to focus on the gym more so I can focus on the family more. But the gym only takes an hour. Family can take all day. So family is going to be the priority. But then I understand that the discipline of me going to the gym is going to give me the energy to hang out with my family. Everything works together, right? It's like when you are cooking, there are certain spices that work well with the dish, right? Chicken or fish. You're going to season it maybe differently. And if you just kind of use all-purpose seasoning for everything, you're going to just have a very bland life because you're going to get so used to this, bland flavor. And I remember there was one chicken seasoning I put it on everything. And it was nice in the beginning, but eventually I got tired of it. And so we have to create that spark. We always have to create that newness of what today can bring. Because for me, when I wake up, I'm like, today is a new day. What's new? What's, like, what am I going to get into? There's going to be things that I do for the 100th time, and there's going to be things that I do for the first time. Sometimes when you do things for the first time, you might love it so much more. So if you just give yourself the mindset of, I'm doing this for the first time, but you do it in a way where you're so caring, right? I'm sure you've probably eaten fruit for many years or pizza for many years. But if you stop, take a bite, taste the food, pay attention, everything is going to change. And the same thing is true with discipline. You stop, you pay attention, and you savor the moment. Because at the end of the day, the moment is all we have. And today we have a moment to not only allow motivation to come and go, but allow discipline to become fixed, to have discipline help us get to the success in our life that we are vying for today.